All right. Hello and welcome to the Unzip Media podcast. I'm here with Seb Johnson, founder of Scaling Europe. Seb, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. It's the first time I've been in the other seat.
Oh, is that the case?
Yeah, so I'm like nervous but excited.
Okay, so now you're gonna feel like like your guests are feeling.
Exactly. Yeah, it's good to like live the other experience, I guess.
And you've just had how many interviews so far? We're at Slush now, obviously. So it's.
So I moderated a panel this morning, and I've interviewed 5 people this morning so far.
That's quite a bit, and then you have more planned, I suppose.
Yes, I've got another 4 this afternoon, and then another 5 tomorrow.
Right. Okay. So then, without further ado, can you talk very quickly about what it is that you do right now, as in?
Yeah. So Scaling Europe, the vision is to build the biggest media company in European tech, promoting and talking about the ecosystem that we have and trying to lift it up through storytelling. I think Americans are so good at selling themselves and their successes and being ambitious and being proud of their achievements. I think in Europe we haven't got that same culture of celebrating each other and celebrating our successes. We also, I think we're trying to move towards, and we're getting there, of like a pan-European tech community. I think it's always been, London's been great, or Paris, Berlin, Munich, Stockholm. And this moment that's happening at the moment is a European tech community and ecosystem. We are one continent, one community of tech people, and that's kind of what I want to help promote and build on, is Scaling Europe. We are one tech community. And so at the moment it's a newsletter that I send out once a week, podcast live show, and live streaming tech events like Slush, all underpinned by my socials. So LinkedIn is where I've grown most of my audience. I've just started on X and TikTok, and I'm seeing like some decent growth there. And so the idea is that I have these columns or pillars of the newsletter, the live show, the events, all underpinned by socials, and so that I am the first person that people come to hear about the news. So the way that media is changing is that people get their news from social media primarily, and so that's where I'm trying to dominate. And then I push people to either the publications who are scooping the stories, or I push them to my newsletters and my podcasts. And so socials is where people are getting their news, so that's where I'm very present. And I use it as a funnel to push people down to the businesses and the products that are monetized, and to where the deepest stories go.
Right, that makes perfect sense. But then let's talk a little bit about what actually brought you to where you are, because you used to work with Deel for quite a while now, and then did you start your content creation journey while at Deel still?
Yes, yeah. So my background's in tech primarily, first early stage and then more late stage with Deel. I was in the product team essentially, but while I was there, I've always tried to build products on the side. And actually, my foray into content was sort of from a product perspective. I posted on LinkedIn once. I had 400 connections, and it was doing an analysis of a startup's financial results, and it published on Companies House, which is like an amazing resource.
Yeah, it is.
The fact that all these startups, once they hit a threshold, have their full P&L is like amazing. Yeah. And so I read this report, and it was actually an article had been written by a journalist, and at the bottom of it, they had linked to the Companies House report. And I read the article, I read the report, and I just felt like the journalist had completely missed the story. And I was like, well, there's so much more to this than how the journalist is reporting it. So I posted about it on LinkedIn. I had like 400 connections, and it went viral. Like, hundreds and hundreds of comments. It's still one of my most viral posts of all time. And so my response was, maybe I should build a product about this. So what I did was I went onto Companies House, connected to the API, so that whenever a financial report was published, I'd be the first person to know about it.
Right.
I pulled all the data from all of the PDFs for like the top 100 startups in the UK, and I tried to sell that as a database, so that if you were a Series B fintech, you could compare your gross margin to the best-in-class Series B fintechs in the UK. Same with like operating expenses and revenue, and the whole idea was.
That's a decent idea.
Nobody wanted to pay for it. But what it gave me is this amazing resource of content. So I could look at these startups and I could be like, wow, this startup's had an amazing story of how they've optimized their gross margin, they've reduced their costs, they've achieved profitability, they've grown rapidly. You can also then tie it back to valuation. So you have like the valuation multiple at that time that they raised. And that's like a really interesting metric that you don't get in a fundraising announcement, because they never talk about revenue. But retrospectively, you do get it, and it gives you the ability to kind of do insights and that kind of stuff. So I started posting once a week, which I found really hard. It was tough. This was like January last year, and that was good. I was seeing like small growth, like 100 or 200 followers a month. And then in summer last year, I started posting 5 days a week, and that's when growth really took off. And then since then, I've just posted more and more regularly, started newsletters, started other socials. And then I quit my job at Deel in summer because it felt like that was the perfect opportunity. It was a really amazing time for European tech and a terrible time for tech media in Europe with closures and redundancies. And so it felt like the storytelling was suffering at a time when we had more stories than ever to tell. So I decided to go all in. And the first iteration was ETS, which I did with Luke and Ronan, who are now the ETN boys. And that was like the first swing of the bat. I like video content, live content. But then they really wanted to do like the TBPN for Europe. And that was
Which was not your vision.
That was not my vision, yeah.
Okay.
And I love those guys and they're crushing it, but that wasn't what I wanted to do. And I also felt like Europe needed a bigger thing, you know, and I wanted to build a bigger company in this space. So we did that for I think 8 weeks. We knew that we had differences quite early on and we were trying to see if we could figure it out. But ultimately it wasn't going to work. And so we kind of went our separate ways, but it kind of gave us both the validation that we felt like we could build something meaningful in this space.
All right, no, that makes perfect sense. But then I suppose by the time when you even quit your job at Deel, you were not only posting your analysis of the company's house filings. It was much more of a normal news content, just perhaps laid out in a language that is not that peculiar to usual traditional media.
Exactly, yeah. So I'd gone, you know, with content, you just try constantly. And like that's the best thing about content, and I think it makes my job so much easier than like traditional journalism, is that I can put a post out there and if it flops, no one sees it anyway and people forget about it. So with content, I was just trying new things always. So I did some stuff in public markets, I did some stuff from like product releases, market expansion, fundraising, and so I just started to learn what content was resonating with different audiences across my audience, which was primarily UK startups at the time. And then I just sort of started to expand and go broader and deeper and do more general news, insights on startups, and eventually started doing Europe as well.
I mean, there was one interesting thing that was highlighted to me by someone else. Someone sent me the link. So on LinkedIn, you look at the feed and there are two posts right next to each other. One post is by you talking about in your usual manner, talking about a story published by Sifted, just like explaining what the story is about, like with a link. And then next to it is another post about the same story by the actual author of that story, the person who actually wrote it. And then the difference in engagement, I think, was like at least 10 times. Like you had so much more people like looking at it, liking it, and so on. It's just I just wonder what does it highlight? What kind of So what was the situation, do you think, in the media landscape?
So I think like someone like Sifted, you know, they still sort of rely on getting people to come to their sites.
Yeah.
You know, that's where their brand has been built. That's what they're well known for. A lot of that's how they monetize through the subscriptions. So I think journalists like that are often reluctant to like share enough of the story on social media, because if you share the story, why would they click on the link and then check out the full story? So I think for me it's often about how can I share enough of the story that people want to read it, and it's like I'm giving all the information that you need. You don't have to leave LinkedIn. So I think that's the difference, is that a lot of time journalists are posting to try and pull people to their site, and I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to give you as much information as you need at a high level in a way that you can understand.
Isn't there an ethical issue though, like sharing content of a paywalled publication on social media just to get views and clicks?
So I don't pay for Sifted paywall. I can't read their paywall articles, and often if there is a paywalled article, I'll have to read it on another publication that publishes it. And there are often, I mean, that's generally how it works, you know, like, and this is true for all the big publications. They'll publish something behind a paywall, and then like there's a long tail of publications who then regurgitate it.
Yeah.
And so I can't read it until they've done it. And so once they've done it, you know, I sort of feel like it's out there, and it's you know, the information is out there. And so all I'm then doing is I'm taking it from a different publication.
Yeah.
But I think it is a bit strange, right? And it does feel like, you know, you're sort of taking the work. But I think it's a fundamental problem with the business model, is that we live in this age of like free information, and it's like you publish something behind a paywall, anybody has the right to then take it and publish it somewhere else, and that's where I take it from. And it's, it's tough.
Okay, I mean, we can always ask these sifted guys what they think about it. I have no particular opinion. Well, while we're on LinkedIn, though, before we move to Scaling Europe, how did you arrive to the kind of language that you are using these days? Because when I look at your post, and I see your post all the time, of course, because LinkedIn algorithm loves you, obviously. But like, what's about all this whopping and breaking and let's go and all the capitalized words? Though, is this something that you arrived at through your experimentation?
Yeah, I don't know what it was. It's become a bit of like a brand joke that people associate me with those things now, and so like I think I did it initially seriously, and I was like, let's go, like being positive and optimistic. But then that style is what people started to recognize me for.
I think so, yeah.
Which is like the caps locks, the sort of like short, snappy sentences, the bullet points with emojis, and that becomes my brand. You know, that's what people expect of me now. That's what people like to read, and people like tell me that's what they like. That it is easy to consume and digest, and that I always try and be like objective, but with a positive and optimistic spin. And so I've sort of just like found my way into these sort of like, brand catchphrases that people sort of associate me with, and yeah.
How much of these posts are AI written?
0.
Okay.
The first post I ever wrote that went viral, I tried to use AI to essentially repeat what I'd done in the first time. And I was like, oh, it'll be easy. I'll go viral again. I'll find a good story. I'll tell AI to like copy the format and the layout, and I'll just go viral again. And I did it, and it was so bad. And I've never used AI for writing ever again. And I don't think you should. You know, like if your product is like what you're writing, I don't think you should be outsourcing that, because I think
it's your core competence.
Exactly, that's the thing that people know you for, and especially like, you know, I do try and have a unique, distinct style. If I try and give that to AI, I don't know if they'll be able to do it.
Absolutely.
And also, like, I write 7 posts a day sometimes. I don't think about it. I write it, I post it, it's done in 10 minutes. You know, like, again, like, I'm not a journalist. If my posts have typos, grammar errors, missing words, like, I don't care. There's a different standard for social media than there is to journalism, and that like, plays very well for me, because like I don't proofread. I'll as long as I've got the facts right, I don't care about grammar or structure or anything like that. I'll just get it out.
Right. But then, so okay, you post so much on LinkedIn, but then you have the entire Scaling Europe to take care of. So it consists of a newsletter and the video part is a live stream, right?
Yeah.
You do live stream. How long is it, and how often does it go out?
So I do a live stream every week. It's between 4 and 6 guests. So like, you know, an hour and a half to 2.5 hours. The Scaling Europe, it started as a live show, and it's kind of evolving more into a sort of broader podcast series. So I do that live show, 20-minute guests, talking about the state of European tech, whatever's top of mind. But then I also do long-form interviews with either VCs or founders. So I've got some of those that I haven't published yet, but like the more classic 1 hour, sit down, talk to me about what's going on, go deeper. And then I'm also doing fundraising announcements. So I published 3 yesterday, like PKI is a classic one. They did $21 million Series A announced yesterday. I sat down with the founder last week to talk about the round. And so I'm doing those, I'm doing the long form, and I'm doing the show. And the idea is, like, with all content, just to try and test and see what resonates, and then go deep on the thing that you know is starting to hit. So I know that the fundraising interviews are doing well, so I want to do more of those. I did one with Backed. You know, they announced their third fund last week, so I did it with them. And so I think I'm going to do more like that, do more long form, and then just do the show on a regular basis as well.
And you're still working alone? It's still just you?
I'm looking to hire. I'm looking to hire somebody at the moment for like early next year. But at the moment, it's all just me. Yeah.
But that's the fact that you're looking to hire means that you're actually doing well in terms of financial performance. It's you don't have a paywall. You just have sponsorships. Is that your general vision as well, like for the outlet?
Yes, I think so. I think, you know, to be completely honest, I would like to get to a point where I can hire a journalist, and I would like to hire a journalist under a new model where it's much more brand led. You know, like where people would be signing up and paying a very small fee, but to be getting the news from the journalists that they love and who have built that brand. And it's almost like Scaling Europe is almost like the agency or the brand that sits above, or like, I don't know, something that gives amazing journalists a platform and distribution through the distribution that I'm building, through my newsletters, my show, my socials. So I kind of give that to amazing journalists, and then also, you know, have these amazing journalists do the real journalism, which I don't do and I can't do, which is like scooping the news, breaking the news, and telling the stories that startups don't always want to tell, right? Like my news is always about lifting startups and founders up, and often it's like press releases that come to me. You know, what Europe needs and what the ecosystem really needs is also that high integrity, amazing journalism, which is telling the stories that founders don't always want to be told, right? But it's sort of like holding the ecosystem to a high standard.
Because I mean, I do think that you are still like rarely, if ever, critical, especially towards founders. And this is also like a part of your brand, I suppose, being positive, being like rooting for the ecosystem as much as you can. But do you think but do you still find that there is space for like a much more critical take, much more journalistic take?
I think we always need that, right? Like when there's bad actors or bad players, you need to be able to hold them to account. My view is that like the biggest problem is in European tech is a lack of ambition, a lack of optimism, a lack of our own ability to like tell our stories. And one of the things that I'm really passionate about is getting more European LP money into European VCs, because even our VCs are funded by American LPs. So all the upside of the companies that we build is going back to the US.
I mean, the funny thing is that actually it is also the other way around. Loads of European LPs actually invested in the VCs in the US.
Yeah, which is great, right? But we also just need more.
Well, it's not great because they don't actually invest in European VCs. They invest in the US VCs.
True.
So this money comes back, but then like most of the profits actually stay in the US.
Well, yeah, that's the thing though. If the European LPs, then they're the ones who carry most of the value, right? Like the VCs get 20% carry. So it's like the 80% of the uplift that we've seen in Revolut, right? Where is that 80% going to? Because it's amazing that Bulletin and Index, European VCs have made a lot of money from that. But where does the real value get captured? And so things like that I'm really passionate about. And it's like, we need to tell the stories of success to convince the market and to convince asset managers that European tech is a great asset class to invest in. And so that's why I think the biggest problems that we have are not, the bad news stories that we get occasionally. The biggest problems that we have is like the opportunity size in front of us and not taking the most of that. So I do think we need the high quality journalism. I do think we need people like accountability within our ecosystem, but that's not going to transform the ecosystem in a way that being positive, optimistic, ambitious is, I think. And so that's kind of my view, is that I generally am not critical because I think it doesn't push things forward.
Okay.
And that's kind of what I'm passionate about, is like lifting the ecosystem up. And I think that the way that we do that is through optimism and ambition.
Yeah. And that brings the obvious question. So whom do you actually consider your audience? Basically, whom are you targeting with all the offerings that you have right now?
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn data is okay. My newsletter data is better. You can see quite clearly that it's founders, investors, operators, and then like adjacent. So like adjacent people might be people who are interested in tech but don't work in there, or service providers. But founders has always been my biggest audience. So like on LinkedIn, I have, I think, 15,000 founders who follow me. Investors is, I think, between 8,000 and 10,000. And then senior operators, generally from people who are sort of like head of and above. Those are the people that are generally connecting with me on LinkedIn, and actually that follows through to my newsletters as well. Those are the main buckets of people. So like founders, investors, senior operators.
Okay. And whom do you see most engagement from? Founders, I guess?
Founders actually don't engage that much. Like some do, some don't. Like founders are often, I think they're always wary about, like founders are super nosy. They want to keep an eye on the ecosystem. They want to see how their competitors are doing. They want to see how their friends are doing. They want to see what the state of the market is. But they're also cautious, I think, to like comment on posts or like, talk too much about other companies. So they watch and maybe they like, but they wouldn't comment or share often. Whereas VCs are often much more aligned with being very publicly associated with brands and companies, and they're much more likely to share posts and comment on things where I'm talking about a portfolio company or a founder they know or like.
I see. And how well does it translate, actually? So your LinkedIn following, which is quite significant, how well does it translate into the following for the newsletter and for the video? Because like if you look at YouTube, there's not like a whole lot of views that your stuff is getting.
So I've got about 60,000 followers on LinkedIn. Yeah. I've got 3 newsletters, and across my 3 newsletters, I've got about 30,000 readers. Scaling Europe about 5,000, which has gone from 0 in the last 2 months. And the shows vary, but like, I'm at like 700 subscribers. So the show is the newest, and it's definitely where I'm like pushing the most, or like, I've got to work the hardest. And that's why I'm doing, like, I do like 10 interviews a week because I'm trying to find that sort of like content market fit. So it does translate, and, but it's the ratio from post to video watch is often much lower. So like I did the PKI one, a classic example yesterday. I think the post probably got between 50 to 70,000 impressions. And I probably got about 1,000 listens across YouTube and Spotify on the podcasts. So it's much lower.
I see.
And so it's tough. But I think I think the way to look at like YouTube is you've got to like rebuild the audience from scratch. And similarly, when I went from LinkedIn to X, I thought that loads of my LinkedIn followers would just follow me on X as well. Not the case at all.
Okay.
I've got like 100 followers. And so I've started from scratch again, and I've had to like change the content type, change the format, and now I'm starting to grow there. So I think the funnel is great for newsletters. I think the written content to written content works really well. And like, from 60,000 followers on LinkedIn to 30,000 readers of newsletters is great.
That's good.
But then to like the live shows, it's much harder than the podcasts, and to TikTok and to Instagram. That funnel doesn't work there. So you have to build your audiences from scratch on those platforms. Essentially, that's kind of how I'm viewing it. And so that's why I'm doing so much content, like YouTube Shorts, TikTok Shorts, X. Like, you just have to be everywhere all at once and have slightly different content for each platform.
Right. And a question that I know some people who watch these podcasts are quite interested in, people mostly who also are working on media projects, as in like podcast shows and everything else. How do you sell? How do you sell sponsorships? Where do you find sponsors? Like, how does it work for you in general? What's your process?
It's tough. As in, my background is product, like selling is a whole new skill set that I'm learning. But I think I'm fortunate in the sense that I've built a following and a brand on LinkedIn that I know lots of people, like lots of service providers know me, and I'm able to leverage the audience that I have on LinkedIn, both to get guests and to get sponsors for the show, while the numbers are still quite low. So for each guest I get on, I can like quite confidently say, I can probably generate around 100,000 impressions for you on social media. So, come on the show, maybe 500 people listen to it, maybe less, maybe more. But across the short form content, the LinkedIn posts I'll get off the back of it, I often get a lot of great stories that make great LinkedIn posts. So come on the show and I'll generate impressions for you on other platforms with the short form, with the posts. And that's the same model that I'm working with the sponsors. It's like, in the last 3 weeks, I generated 1.5 million impressions for my sponsors of the show.
Right.
So even when the show's not getting a lot of listeners, the content does amazingly well on other platforms. And so that's the sell that I give, is that because the platform I've built on LinkedIn, I'm able to get great guests and I'm able to generate loads of impressions, and that provides a lot of value for your brand and for the guests that I get on the show.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Last question, I know we're out of time. Between Scaling Europe and ETN and TBPN and Ventures and some other projects like that, what about this like long-term long-form live stream format? Is this something that you see actually like emerging and staying as an important media format in tech in particular, or is this something that will go away like in a year or two?
I think there's a good chance it'll go away. Transparently, I think that the live format is so difficult from a content perspective compared to other content formats, and there's a bunch of reasons for this. But like, you go live. And if you go live regularly, TBPM guys do it 5 days a week. As soon as that episode is done, it's kind of in the bin. Like it's really hard to reuse that content because you've got another one tomorrow and another one the day after. So it has a really short shelf life, which is really problematic. Like when you have the most successful podcasts, in a day, most of their views come from old episodes, right? Because they built this huge long tail of amazing guests. And I'll go to a Harry Stebbings episode and I'll watch his interview with the founder of Deel because it's still interesting and relevant today. When you make it about the news, it's instant and it's instantly forgettable. So I think the content having a really short shelf life is problematic. And it's also much harder to monetize and to get engagement. You go live for like 3 hours in an afternoon, people are working. People have got it on in the background.
Exactly.
They're like not focused on it. So it's much harder to sell sponsorship for versus like a classic podcast where it's like, hey, this sponsorship, like, I'm being sponsored by Harmonic right now today, right? I can say, hey, go check out Harmonic, put my code in, get a discount. It's trackable. Same with my newsletters, they're all trackable. You can really see the ROI. Live shows, it's like, how many people are watching? How engaged are they? Like, how focused are they on it? Like, versus a podcast, people might listen to it when they're walking or on the commute. And how do you push people to your sponsors and track that? So in terms of content, it's really hard to monetize because it's like the content is like the shelf life is really small, really hard to track ROI. And it's like when I've done the stats, it's just not an engaged audience. Like when I compare my podcast stats, how long will people listen on average to a podcast versus a live show? Much longer on a podcast because it's in their free time. They're choosing to go to this thing and they're tuning in. And so they want to stick with it. They've made the decision. Whereas a live show, they'll see it on LinkedIn, they'll see it on X, they'll see it on YouTube, they'll watch it for 5 minutes, and then they'll go back to their work, they'll go and have lunch. So I think, the TBPN guys, I think they'll do it. They've done an amazing job, and they've become that place. But I think even if you look at one of their daily shows, they get like 15,000 views, which like when you break it down by like what's the average that they're listening to, it's not that much. But they're going to be fine because they can get Mark Zuckerberg on. They can get the biggest, they can get the biggest names so that 100,000 people will tune in when they get those people. So like for me, I think it's an amazing way of doing something different, trying the content of like the day and getting great guests that I can then use as a podcast. But in terms of content to monetize and media to monetize, so hard. I think unless you absolutely smash it, the model doesn't work.
Yeah, unless you have like a very, very big name every single day.
Yeah, right. And unless you also have the platform where you can then push out, or the way that I do, right, is like I can generate clips, the content from the clips can like has a long shelf life and you can capture people that way. But it's really hard to prove ROI on, and like without the sponsors, you can't run it. So I would say it's a great format and it works if you can like knock it out the park.
Yeah.
But it's hard to do, and you've got to be able to do it for a long time. And that's true of all content, but live shows are expensive in a way that posting on LinkedIn or doing a podcast from your bedroom is very cheap.
Now, this is a great balance for you, Seb. Thank you so much once again for taking the time. Good luck with everything you're doing.
And my pleasure. Likewise, great to chat.
Openness. Take care. Well, thank you.
My pleasure. Yeah.
I'm sorry, mate. You've got like 0 minutes until your interview.
No, it's my fault. I'm chatting.